Sonny Handsome, Ali, class in session. Let's get some of this Alan Watts before I go to rest and get some of this internal love and light.
It leads us into a curious confusion that we confuse the symbolic process with the actual world. I'm always hoping, always thinking that the next time will be it. And this, of course, is an eternal illusion. It's much better. Actually, one will be much happier to think that the future is simply deteriorating. I can explain that very simply.
Me too.
Human beings are largely engaged in wasting enormous amounts of psychic energy in attempting to do things that are quite impossible.
That's why you gotta
manifest. As the proverb says, you can't lift yourself up by your own bootstraps. But recently, I've heard a lot of references in just general reading and listening where people say, we've got to lift ourselves up by our own bootstraps. And you can't. And you can struggle and tug and pull till you're blue in the face and nothing happens except that you exhausted yourself. All sensible people, therefore, begin in life with two fundamental presuppositions. You are not going to improve the world, and you are not going to improve yourself. You are just what you are. Once you have accepted that situation, you have an enormous amount of energy available to do things that can be done. And everybody else looking at you from an external point of view will say, my God, how much so-and-so has improved.
I know myself.
But I know, I mean, hundreds of my friends are at work on enterprises to improve themselves by one religion or another, one therapy or another, this system, that system. And I'm desperately trying to free people from this. And I suppose that makes me a messiah of some kind. But the thing is that you can't do it. One very simple reason is that the part of you which is supposed to improve you is exactly the same as that part of you which needs to be improved. In other words, there isn't any real distinction between bad me and good I.
Mm-hmm.
Between the higher self
and the lower self, which
is spiritual, and the lower self, which is animal. It's all of a piece. You are this organism, this integrated, fascinating energy pattern.
I told you that savage in the lower self. I've been there, demonic.
Robert Oppenheimer, a little while before he died, said that it's perfectly obvious that the whole world is going to hell. The only possible chance that it might not is that we do not attempt to prevent it from doing so.
Charge on.
Because you see, all the troubles going on in the world now are being supervised by people with very good intentions. Their attempts to keep things in order, to clean things up, to forbid this and prevent that possible horrendous damage. And the more we try, you see, to put everything to rights, the more we make fantastic messes. And it gets worse. And maybe that's the way it's got to be. Maybe I shouldn't say anything at all about the folly of trying to put things to right. But simply on the principle of Blake, let the fool persist in his folly so that he will become wise. I'm pitching a case for the fact that the civilization has been a mistake. That it would be much better to leave everything alone. The wild animals are wiser than we.
They are, these fucking little
in that they
flies. They don't even go on this.
Putting it in our crude and not very exact language, they just follow their instincts. And if a moth mistakes a flame for the signal on which it gets a mating call and flies into the flame, so what? That just keeps the moth population down. And the moth doesn't worry. It doesn't go buzzing around in a state of anxiety. It doesn't think consciously about the future. At least we suppose this is so. And therefore, it isn't troubled. But the species of moths goes on and on and on. And so far as we know, it's been around for an incredibly long time. Now, we who look before and after, as Emerson says, and predict, and are always concerned whether this generation is going to be better or worse than the one that came before, we are tormented. And we just don't realize, because of this tremendous preoccupation with time, we don't realize how beautiful we are, in spite of ourselves. Because you see, the conscious radar is a troubleshooter. It's always on the watch out for variations in the environment which may bring about disaster. And so consciousness is from one day's end to another entirely preoccupied with time and with planning and with what has been and with what will be. And since troubleshooting is its function, we then get the general feeling that man is born to trouble. And we ignore in this preoccupation with conscious attention how marvelously we get on. How, for most of the time, our physical organs are in a fantastically harmonious relationship. How our body relates by all sorts of unconscious responses to the physical environment. So that if you became aware of all the adjustment processes that are being managed spontaneously and subconsciously by your organism, you would find yourself in the middle of great music. And of course, this occasionally happens. Well, the mystical experience is nothing other than becoming aware of your true physical relationship to the universe. And you're amazed, thunderstruck by the feeling that underneath everything that goes on in this world, the fundamental thing is a state of unbelievable bliss. The thing is that oneself is certainly not the stream of consciousness. Oneself is everything that goes on underneath that.
That was beautiful, and not as long as I thought it would be. So I hope y'all enjoyed it and ride with me in this classroom. As y'all can see, I was ready for, rest, and I always try to get my mind in line with, with peace, and, say my mantras, for the future, so I can manifest the things that I want in my reality and in my world. And so far, so good. So one time for the one time. Peace, Islam, love and light to my peoples. I love y'all. I'm coming in goodness, and in truth. One time for the one time.